My name is David Streit. I've been working for Via Rail for 17 years. I enjoy this job because just the constant new parade of people coming through, passengers from all over the world, people with different backgrounds, experiences. The people I work with are generally pretty interesting too. When it's not completely dark out, we have one of the best views, like going through the mountains, the changing seasons, certain things. It's never static, it's always moving, you're always getting people on, people off, and so you can't really predict what's going to happen next, you just kind of have to like roll with it. So I like that, I like being in the service industry, I like talking to people, I like learning about people, I like meeting people, and that kind of, all that kind of stimulus kind of feeds back into what I do with the typewriter, with the writing. I've always had this, every night I'll write, and so that's writing for me existed before this job, but I think writing for me is also like a kind of a cathartic thing, you know. I have to release whatever it is into some sort of written form, so at least it's not going to keep bouncing around in my head at night. So it's almost like a coping mechanism for whatever, be the work, the day, like when something terrible happens at the job, terrible, it actually turns into a really good story. So in that sense, it's a coping mechanism for this job. So no matter what happens, like two bags get mixed up, and then there's a bit of a confusion with that. When I unpack it later on, I look at it like, oh, that story kind of becomes kind of almost something else in the way I've now retranslated it almost into my own thoughts, right? Other times I'll take the train from, we're all based in Winnipeg, so I have the option to go to Vancouver, which I do, or I could go to Toronto, which I don't, and I can go to Churchill eventually, which is like the northern route to the Hudson Bay, which I do eventually want to do into my later years and to retire. So there's different kind of, it's almost like a different storylines for each direction. When you go north, you're going through very small towns, remote. When you're going out to Toronto, you're again going through all this lake country, getting people on and off. And when you go west, it's just this long trip with big turnovers in like places like Edmonton and Jasper, and then you end up on the coast. So they'll have a different kind of a different tone, depending on where I work on the train. If I'm working the dining car, I'm meeting all the people and talking to everyone, so then kind of gives me a better spread of personalities. If I'm a porter, when I'm making beds, I don't meet that many people, but the people I do meet, I get to know very intimately, so I get to break them down in different ways and have to deal with their lives in a more intimate way, in the sense I'm going to their rooms, making their beds, organizing things. So it's depends on the service and my interaction with them and how kind of what comes out or what becomes a story, I guess you could say. So, I mean, it's never boring, you know, it just, there's always something happening. So I've heard somewhere someone said like the train is like a literary device. So I literally work on a literary device. So every night before I go to bed, when I unpack the day, talk about the late train, the lady who destroyed the bathroom, or the guy who went insane, had to get kicked off the train by my partner Kelly. Like anything and everything has happened. Going up to Churchill one time, the train got stuck in hard-packed snow, and the engineers took off the engine, that we had no power, and we were stuck in -60 in the middle of the tundra, and 10 more minutes we were going to get helicoptered out to the nearest town because we would have died out there. So that became one of my favorite stories I've ever written. And I think it happened, and I wrote about it, and then I thought about it later on, and I realized I kind of coped with it, I guess you could say, by writing about it. But you know, it's just it's almost like trying to understand what's happening, you know, like maybe I don't know if I'd be able to handle this job if I wasn't writing every night, if I wasn't turning it into this kind of story that I'm continually growing and collecting. So at this point, this is my 17th year, I have more than a few thousand pages of this. And the tone's changed as I've done it, right? Because I share with my coworkers, and they tell me what parts they like. So I get immediate feedback all the time. I'll just leave it on the table in the morning, so they have their coffee and they read my little pages, and then I don't have to talk to them as much, but they get to know what I'm thinking about. But they also get to know what's going on, and it's kind of like I don't know, like a retro blog almost. But it's meant to be literary. It's meant to be shared. It's meant to be read. So, I do eventually want to compile some aspect of maybe even the recent pages and do get a book published.